Okay, now in this video I'm going to discuss about the CCNA exam updates. So basically in my previous videos I have already discussed the exam updates like previously we generally have different tracks for CCNA, but from February to 2020 24 February 2020, so there is no more specializations. So you'll be having one consolidated CCNA exam, and the old papers already explained this. So if you are going for certification before February to 24, so you need to go with this certification exams. So whereas if you are going for certification exam after 24 February 2020, so the exam code is going to be 200-301, and there's only one paper, and this one paper is going to be the CCNA. Again, I'm just coming to the contents. That's what I'm going to focus in this video. And again, as I said, if you're already preparing for the existing or the current CCNA, so you don't need to worry. Still the 80% of the concepts remains the same. So some of the topics has been removed and some new topics has been added. So basically you just need to figure out those topics. Again, the CCNT is going to expire or the retire after February. So there's no more CCNT exams. CCNA will be the first, the basic exam you're going to write for the Cisco certifications. Now coming back to the contents, that's something what I'm going to focus here. Now the Cisco CCNA exam contents, you can use this URL, have 6 major sections. Now even I think in the previous section, in the previous or the current CCNA also have the same sections, but there are some new sections which has been added. Like one of the main one is automation and the programmability. So these are the percentage of the topics covered in these individual sections. Like starting with the first one, the network fundamentals. So let me just quickly get into more details on the contents here. Okay, so this is a main page URL, CCNA routing switching. If you click on this URL, so you can get some information on CCNA. So I'm going to use these exam topics. Now here you can see the topics. So you can either click here directly to get the exam topics here. And you can see there are 6 sections as I discussed. So if I click on show details, individual sections. Now starting with the network fundamentals, so mostly this section is going to cover most of the networking basics, like understanding the network components, like what are the different components you're going to use, like the routers, switches, firewalls, IPs, access points, wireless controllers, endpoint servers, what they are exactly and what is the role they play in the today's network. So additionally, you'll see something like DNA, digital network architecture, and wireless LAN controllers for wireless. So I'll just come more on DNA in the later on automation section. And additionally, you also need to understand the hierarchy or the different architectures you generally see. So the architecture or the different models of network implementations, 2-tier, 3-tier, there are different options here. So probably you'll be getting into understanding the different network topologies and their characteristics and how they exactly, how we do exactly in today's production networks, and also understanding the importance of on-premises and on-cloud options. Now next thing, we also talk about the connection types, the different types of interface connections, like the fiber cables and the fiber connections, or even Ethernet connections. It can be a shared or point-to-point, or even the concepts of PoE, power over Ethernet, where you connect your wireless or IP phones which to the switch, which provides power supply without any external power options. So basically here you can see this is what the 1.3 section talks about. So similar way here you can see the different in options or the interface issues or the cable issues, like collisions, errors, duplex issues, or speed mismatch issues. So some sort of troubleshooting relating to connectivity part, and then understanding the TCP UDP protocols. The different protocols come under TCP and UDP and how they work. So more like TCP IP topic in the previous versions. Now currently you don't have this OSI model or the TCP IP topics. So basically we will be using something like TCP IP model in today's networks, and we need to understand the TCP based or the UDP based protocols and the services what they exactly offer. Apart from that, you also get into some IPv4 addressing, same like the previous, and also you will learn about IPv6 addressing. And in IPv4 addressing, you also get into some kind of subnetting concepts. Now this from here, basically this is all about IPv4 and IPv6 addressing, and then understanding the client parameters, like how you're going to check the operating system parameters on different client operating systems. Basically that is verifying that. And one major thing is, you will see this is something what added. So basically you'll see these concepts in the CCNA wireless in our previous or the current versions. So now there is no more wireless track for the CCNA. So basically in the CCNA you are expected to get into some more information apart from the basic networking like CCNA concepts. You will be getting into some kind of wireless technologies, so you need to have some foundations in the CCNA for wireless as well as some security concepts, and additionally you will be also learning some kind of automation. So that's what the new CCNA or the basic CCNA is going to discuss. Apart from the CCNA, you will be getting into foundations of these three different topics. That's what this understanding the wireless concepts like SSID, RF radio frequencies, and encryption. What is SSID, Wi-Fi channels, these kind of options. So basically describe means you will be learning theoretically what they exactly do. So apart from that, you also need to know about virtualization fundamentals, because in today's networks, virtualization plays a major role in a network. Let me just give an idea of what is virtualization here. So virtualization is just like running multiple devices on a single box. Just like you have multiple servers, maybe your FTP server, HTTP server, and some SNMP server, you are just running everything on one single server or one single box. So the main advantage of this virtualization is like reduces the hardware requirements or reduces the power consumptions, and you will see more in detail in some different tracks like data center, VMware. These are like the more specialized tracks on the virtualization. So basically at the CCNA level you expect to know some virtualization basics as well. So additionally these are like the basic switching concepts, like understanding how the switches learns the MAC addresses and how it forwards, how it floods, understanding the MAC table, basically the basics of switching concepts, what you have done in the CCNA as well. So if we just summarize these concepts, so basically the section 1 is more about understanding the role of network components, understanding the different network topology architectures and the connection types, and understanding the TCP/UDP protocols and IPv4, IPv6 addressing options. Additionally, you need to know about wireless and virtualization concepts, also the basic switching concepts. Here, so advanced switching you will be seeing in the next section actually. Now let's move to the section 2. The second section is 20%. Now in this section again you will see most of the switching concepts like configuring some VLANs, virtual LANs, and configuring some trunk ports by using .1q encapsulations and understanding the native VLANs. So more like the advanced switching concepts of your previous CCNA, and also understanding the concept of CDP, LLDP, Ether channels, and RSTP operations. Because again STP is gone. Basically you don't use STP in today's network, so we have a faster convergence of spanning tree. That's what RSTP. And understanding the roles of different ports, the different bridges or the switches, and also understanding the port fast benefits to make your port immediately into forwarding without listening learning. There's a process actually to speed up the convergence in the spanning tree as well. So this part is more on the switching side. So you learn the basic switching in the section 1, and you'll be moving on with the advanced switching concepts here. So this is typically based on the wide networks, and the next options, whatever you see here, this section is understanding and configuring some of the wireless LAN designs. So basically here these options relates to like understanding the different wireless architectures and the access point modes, and also you're going to describe the physical infrastructure of the different wireless components, like what are access points, what they do, and to manage those access points we use some wireless LAN controllers, and the different types of links, again how you connect them to the physical network, and these options here. The similar way how we are going to manage these connections, basically that's what the wireless LAN controller management actions connections, access connections, basically like how we can manage the WLC. WLC stands for wireless LAN controllers, where you can manage multiple access points from a single point. So additionally, you will be configuring some kind of quality of service options like profiles and some advanced wireless settings. So this section is more about the network access within the LAN, where this is wired and the wireless. Now in the next section, that is section 3, you will be discussing about IP connectivity. IP connectivity is connecting different sites. In our normal terminology, we can say most of the routing concepts come here, whereas in the previous section we have covered some switching with in terms of LAN and the wireless, whereas here routing the traffic between different multiple LANs. So you're going to learn most of the routing concepts here, like understanding the routing table, what is the prefix value, network mask, administered distance. So most of the routing basics, and also you learn the different routing options like how we do static routing, default routings, and even some dynamic routing options. And I think dynamic routings will be using OSPF protocol here. So again, you can see this is a static routing, dynamic routing, and what exactly it will see in order to build the routing table. This section is all about how the router builds the routing table, what are the parameters it is going to check first, like it will check the longest match. There are some options probably. I cannot explain you in one line or two lines exactly here, but basically how the routing table is built and configuring some routing. And now again, this routing is all about IPv4 as well as IPv6 again. So, and also understanding that OSPF v2. OSPF v2 is routing OSPF protocol for IPv4, whereas OSPF v3 is in terms of routing for IP version 6. So basically here you will be learning some static routing options, static and default routings, even some floating static routes, and understanding the OSPF protocol, how the neighbor adjacency happens, and in point-to-point protocol as well as in the broadcast networks where you have a DR-media elections, how the router ID is selected. So most of the OSPF options. So if you're familiar with most of the CCNP route concepts, so you might be much aware of most of these concepts. Again, understanding the first hop redundancy protocol like HSRP, VRRP, and GLPP options. So basically it tells you to describe, so which means you need to theoretically know about this. But whereas whenever you see the concept of configure and verify, you have to understand that you are expected to know how to configure and verify and troubleshoot these configurations. Now the next section, IP services. So IP services talks more on the different additional services you implement in your network, like NAT, a method of translating your private to public IP addresses, or it can be like how the DNS works, and how the DSCP is going to work. Basically it shows you like how to explain, means you need to know how exactly they work in a production network and how they will be useful in general. And additionally, knowing some syslogs where you log most of the messages, logging options, the different logging options in general. And additionally, you also need to know about some quality of service options, like what is quality of service, what is classification, marking, how we can avoid the congestion by using congestion management mechanisms, what is policing, shaping. So more into theoretically. So you may not be expected to configure the quality of service parameters here, but you need to know theoretically how exactly the quality of service options work in general. So additionally, you need to know some other services like SSH. SSH is an alternative to Telnet, because Telnet is a normal remote connection which is in a clear text. SSH provides you the secure, you can say it's like a secure Telnet, but it's an encrypted connection, SSH. And additionally, how we will be using FTP, TFTP protocols for backup, restore kind of options. So where exactly we use and how we use them. Now moving on to the next section, the security fundamentals. Now basically in security fundamentals, like in the previous CCNA or the current one, we have an ACLs, you still have ACL topic here where you are expected to configure and verify the access list. Additionally, you will be learning some additional security parameters like here you can see the initial options. Basically here, these are more like theoretical concepts you need to know about security. Like if you have gone through with my CCNA security videos where we have discussed basically like what are different types of threats, what is the meaning of vulnerability and exploits, and what are the mitigation techniques, or how we can overcome those kind of attacks. Theoretically, you need to know some kind of basic terminology you need to know, and also creating end user awareness, because most of the end users, like let's say if you take an example of a guy who works in an accounts department, he doesn't know anything about security or how exactly the things works in the network side. So basically we need to educate these end users who are non-technical guys, like what are the possible vulnerabilities. Like you have some kind of phishing attack where you get a phone call from an unknown guy and he claims to be an employee of the company or some XYZ company, and he try to offer you something, where you may end up getting into some kind of attack or provide some kind of confidential information. Just like he may ask you your user ID and the password to log into the accounts database so that he actually gets some information on that, and you may assume that that guy is a real guy who has called from so and so company. So it's a kind of example. So you need to make sure that the user awareness training programs and also limiting the physical access to the devices or the database is also very important. And also understanding some other password policies, like the different options of securing the passwords, like using local passwords, and also some password policies, like how you're going to manage complexity of the passwords, like password alternatives, like implementing two-factor authentication or using some certificates or biometrics additional security methods to provide more security. So also you need to know about VPNs, understanding what is VPN. There are two types of VPN, site-to-site VPN and remote access VPN, what they do exactly, and the importance of the VPNs in today's networks. Again, describe means you don't get into in-depth of the VPN concepts, but basically you need to have a good foundation on the VPN subject. Understanding the ACLs, same. So additionally, you will see this is layer 2 security. Like this is all about understanding the different types of threats you expect in the LAN and how we can mitigate. Like one example is spoofing a DHCP server or a fake DHCP server. That's what DHCP spoofing. Or even there is an ARP spoofing attack, and to prevent that we have a solution called dynamic ARP inspection. And also there is something called MAC flooding attack, and to overcome that we have a port security feature, something like that. So DHCP spoofing is an attack, snooping is a solution here. So additionally, understanding the concept of AAA. AAA stands for authentication, authorization, and accounting. Just like whenever you try to use your card, let's say you are trying to do some online transaction, so the first thing you will be asked to enter the correct PIN or the password, that is to authenticate. And the next thing you will be authorized, like what is the limit. Just like per day, like in India here, you can do the transaction of not more than 40 to 50,000 per day. So depending upon your type of account. So that's a limitation, or you can only withdraw the amount. Like you have a credit card and you are using, and you have a monthly limit, something like that. So what you can do, what you cannot do. And additionally, you need to keep a track of all those activities. That is what at the end of the month you will get a bill. That billing will show you that this is what you did on this day. You did some transaction on this particular place, something like that. So basically same thing required for network as well. So if anyone is trying to access the network, like an accounts guy connects to his network, he must be authenticated, authorized, as well as you need to keep information of the transaction when he connected. Basically the AAA options. Even it is required for device access. Like let's say there is a user who is trying to telnet to the router. So basically he must be authenticated to log into the router, and then he will be allowed only to configure basic specific commands. That's what authorize, and then keep a track of what are the changes he did. So basically you don't get into details more in depth like what I have explained here, but basically you need to know the concept of AAA and how they exactly what is the role they play in today's networks. Okay, so basically that's what differentiate these three options, AAA, and then these two options relating to wireless security. So again, wireless provides you the mobility to connect to your network from mostly any place from your office within your local LAN, but at the same time it is a little bit more vulnerable to some kind of attacks. So how we can protect our wireless networks using different security protocols, the differences, and then also you will be configuring that wireless LAN by using this WPA2 security mechanism, basically using the GUI.